The purpose of this movie is to give you a quick overview of Project Vasari 1.1. I want you to see how quickly I can, first of all, produce a mass model of my building, then run an analysis to get some meaningful results in terms of the building's performance. So if I start to draft, I'm going to point out some differences as I work, but the first process is to create the model. So I'm just going to go in and draw. You see that I see the dimensions there, and if I need to change the size of something, I can pick and click on a dimension, change it. I can pick that shape that I created and I can drag it up. And the first improvement that you might see here is that I can see my levels in 3 dimensions, and I can see when my mass model is aligned with them, so I can move it up and know that that's aligned. But in addition to that, I can be working where even if I drag this surface up, and I've got within my model the ability to make changes to this mass in many different ways, like just kind of pulling and pushing on it. But the point is that when I drag it up here, I can actually do things like, say, I want to align to the top floor the top surface of my model, and get that aligned the way that I want. So I'm actually done with my model. And I've got, because it's in a BIM model, I've got data associated with it. So let me just show you the data. If I say I'm finished with the mass and I click on this, what I want to do is just say I'm going to cut through the building. I want to take from level 1 all the way up to level 5, and I want to slice through that form. Right. And now if I look up here on my mass floor schedule, you see I've immediately got quantities on the exterior surface area, the floor area, the floor perimeter, and the volume. Well, how great would it be if I could take that kind of quantitative data and use information about the building, like what is the R value of the exterior walls, or what's the percentage of glazing. I can capitalize on the fact that I have this data by doing just that through using Vasari. I can produce a meaningful study. So I've got my model, and just to show you that this is actually always live, the change one place, change anywhere. If I pick my model and I say I'm going to edit the profile, why don't I take out just that edge of the closed shape, and what I'm going to do is just drop in an arc here to change the shape of my building a little bit. I'll say I'm finished doing the mass modeling that I was doing, and I go back to my floor schedules. You see, as soon as I click that, finish mass, there's my new quantitative data, right? It's showing the floor perimeter has been adjusted. It's different obviously now in every level because of the changes that I made to the form of the building. If I go back in here, I'm actually ready to do my study. I'll just show you that my first step would be that I'm going to go up and say, let's get into the servers that are located remote from my desktop. When I log in, I'm actually accessing the cloud. The computing that will be done, the heavy lifting, if you like, that will be done in calculating my study is being done not on my limited desktop, but on cloud, on servers that are available remotely, so that I don't really need very high performing software to be able to do the study. So I'm ready to draft. I'm ready to do the study now. First thing I might want to tell it, if I go under Analyze, is what are the values for my building in terms of the surfaces, and how do they, and who occupies the building, or what's the occupancy. So if you look on here, you should be able to see the building type is an office, but I've got a choice of many other building types. So it knows things like occupancy loads and makes estimates on the amount of equipment and lighting and heating that you're getting from the people that are in there. And all I'm going to do is click on the button that says create me an energy model. Some of the default settings, for example, it says target percentage area 40%, target sill height 2 feet 6. When I click on that, it's going to apply that to my model. That's how quickly I went from a mass model to really like a surface model. And I can look up here, because I've got the controls, as I can say, show me it as a mass model, show me it as a surface model, or show me it as the zones that you created per floor, really like creating zones for the activities that were taking place within the building. So I've got my study already done. I've got my assignments for what the default surfaces are on this. I can now say, let's go and analyze that model. So it offers me the name of a report. I'm going to call this one baseline, just so you can see that there's no smoke and mirrors involved here, and you'll see that it's being created as I work. Now, even while it's working, the point would be that I could come in here and say, what if I was able to take my building and reduce it in length a bit? I'm just cutting it back. Or what if I wanted to reduce the height a bit, right? I can pull it down and change the height. So I can make changes to the mass model, and the updates are happening live as I make the changes. Right? So even while it's analyzing, I'm still in my project and still making adjustments to my building for my second iteration to see what it'll be like. I just got a, it was so quick I missed it. I got a notification telling me that the report was already done. So if I go up and I look at my report, here's my report, the one that I just generated, and I'm going to scroll down here, I can see that it says here that my life cycle energy costs in the building is $1,635,000. It gives me data. You know, the building is in Boston. I didn't change any of the settings, so it's got the temperature. It's got the cost of electricity and fuel in that region, and it's got an estimate on the number of people. I said it was an office, so based on occupancy, it's got 213 people. If I scroll down, look at the data, you notice it gives me a lot of great information, like the net CO2 is 280 tons a year, and I can see like where these are being, how that total is divided up. What is from electrical consumption, what is from fuel, and what potential is there in the building for me to generate electricity and so reduce that carbon footprint and I've got an estimate down there. I can look at the useful graphics that are here and get information like what are the cooling loads month by month through the year, and what are the heating loads month by month through the year. So I can see like where my building is impacted, and I could draw conclusions, like some of them obvious, like, you know, if I can reduce the window area or make some improvement to the glazing in the building, especially on the north side of the building here, then I'll be able to reduce some of these loads and improve the building's performance. Monthly fuel consumption, look at that for January, worst month of the year. I got information on prevailing winds in Boston, so I know from here where the strongest winds come from, the northwest. I can look at the distribution, where do they most frequently come from, the west, and I can do that on a month by month basis. And you'll see actually later on in another movie I'll show you the windrows that's a part of Revit 1.1, which gives you even more information than I'm seeing here. I've got design data that gives me like the daily minimum and maximum temperature, and I can analyze what it tells me with a view to making changes to my building. Let me pick just one value that was there. That was the life cycle energy use of about $1,600,000, right? Just so you've got that in mind. Well, I've already changed my building, right? So I can analyze it again. I forgot I was able to change it at the same time as it was producing the report. So let me call that baseline 2. And I'm going to kick off that report. So remember, this is being done remotely. And while it's doing the second report, let me show you that I can make further changes to my model. For example, if I'm looking here at the zones, see I've got zones selected up here, I can pick on this in my model and scrolling down, let me move this off just a bit so you can see it. I'm able to say, well, I don't want that to be the zone as defined by the general settings where I said this is an office. I could come in here and say, you know what, it's actually, and this is my second report is done already, right? So I'm not quite fast enough. Let me come down here and say, let me make that top floor classroom lecture training and apply. So I can change activities within the building. I can also, if I look at the surfaces, I can do things like tab through until I find the front of my building. I'm going to bring up that properties tab again just so that you see it. That was the glazing on the front of the building. And what I'm doing here is I'm coming down here and saying not according to the defaults, but give me double pane tinted on the south side of my building. Let me make one more change in here. If I tab through to the front and I've got the mass exterior wall, I can come up and I can say I don't want the R values associated with the general settings, but I want to come in here and actually say that maybe this is a typical cold climate insulation. So this adjusts the R value for the wall itself from what the default was. So I'm able to change that and overrule. Oh, and let me do one more thing then while I'm on the front here, the front of my building. I'm going to tab to the front and just show you about changing the percentage of, I'm looking for the surface. Sorry, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, that will make it easier. So I'm going to tab through here. I got that exterior wall. I'm going to say don't use the energy settings for that where I assigned the percentage of glazing. I'm going to say on the south side of my building, let's bump that up to 80%. In fact, let's tell it that there is shading for the south side of the building, and let's assume that we've got a 3-foot shade. So when I click on that, you can see the change in my model. Just park this at the sides. And now what I've got, if I turn this a bit so you can see it, is a more complex shape. The point of all of this is that I'm able to customize all of the surfaces and the materials, so adjusting R values for my walls within the building. Then run an analysis to get results. I just set it up to run a third analysis, but let me just show you the 2 analyses that I have already. So I did the baseline and the baseline 1. I can compare them side by side, and I can go and look at the performance of my building. For example, the one that I'd mentioned was the life cycle energy cost, and so I was able to, just in the first changes that I made, reduce it from $1,635,000 to about $1,540,000 based on the changes that I made. Well, that is a powerful tool. That lets me very early in the design process try and establish the direction that I want to go in, and then later, of course, I can take this model into Revit and I can say to it, why don't you change this roof surface to an actual roof? Why don't you change this wall surface to an actual wall or curtain wall? So I can start on my construction documentation without me having to redo anything. I can go straight from the conceptual massing. I hope you find that useful. Let me know what topics you want me to cover in that general workflow. I have a list already, and I'm sitting down to produce things about the new features like solar radiation and the windrows climate. Sorry, am I saying the windrows? Thank you.